The Icarus had been lost for 13 years. Officially, it was written off as a failed deep space research mission. A systems error, a fuel miscalculation, maybe a quiet disaster out beyond Neptune. Most people forgot it. But now it was back. It drifted through the blackness on a broken orbit, slowly spinning, its lights long dead. No heat, no crew, no signal until now. Commander Reza Imani stared at the transmission. He was stationed at Blackwatch Station, a classified outpost hidden behind Saturn's smallest moon. Few knew it existed. Even fewer had access to the channels it monitored. Reza had been watching deep space for almost a decade, waiting, hoping he'd never actually see anything. But the message from the Icarus repeated again and again, a scratchy voice warped by time and distance. They're not what we thought. They didn't come in ships. They didn't cross space. They came through us. Then static. 5 seconds of silence. Then the loop started again. It wasn't just a distress call. It was a warning. Halley, isolate the signal source, Reza said, his voice calm but sharp. The AI, a cold but reliable voice, replied, confirmed. Origin, Icarus. Drifting near Neptune's orbit. Minimal energy signature. No crew life signs detected. No crew. Reza frowned. None at all. Negative. Internal atmosphere is unstable. Hull integrity is weak. 95% of systems offline. He leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on the looping message. 13 years ago, Icarus had gone to study gravitational anomalies near the edge of the solar system. A simple science mission. It was supposed to last 6 months. Then it vanished. Now it was back. And something had changed. Reza tapped his control panel. The message was old, but not corrupted. The voice was still human, still scared. Halley brought up the final logs. Glitchy footage played across the screen. A crewman's face, pale, eyes wide, sweat on his brow. Behind him, the lights flickered. I don't think this is space, the man whispered. It's inside the gravity, like it lives in the curve. The ship isn't moving. We are. But it's not right. More static. Then another voice, shaky and tired. They aren't aliens. Not like we expected. They don't come from the stars. They come from weakness. Then silence again. The room around Reza felt colder now. Patch this to command, he ordered. Top encryption. Use priority code Eclipse. Confirmed, Halley said. Reza stood, pacing slowly across the narrow observation deck. The stars beyond Saturn were calm, unchanging, but something in his gut told him that wasn't true anymore. This wasn't like the old invasion stories. No glowing armadas, no demands, no countdown clocks, just a silent, broken ship drifting home with a whisper of terror. And that whisper was enough. Halley's voice returned. Commander, we are detecting gravitational fluctuations near the outer ring. Coordinates match original Icarus mission parameters. Reza froze. Fluctuations. Confirmed. Microlensing. Inconsistent field behavior. Temporal displacement possible. Time displacement? Reza muttered. You're saying the laws of physics are bending? There was no answer. Halley couldn't confirm what it didn't understand. Reza exhaled slowly and turned toward the long-range scanners. Prepare drone recon. Full stealth. I want eyes on Icarus. And deploy the Black Protocol. Halley paused. Black Protocol is not recommended. It alerts all ShadowNet nodes. I know what it does. Do it anyway. Outside, small black drones launched from the station, vanishing into the dark. They would reach the Icarus in 19 hours. If it survived that long. Inside Reza's mind, old warnings echoed. There were stories, buried ones. Ancient defense plans. Rumors of something lurking in the outer dark. Not machines. Not life. Just awareness. Hostile awareness. Some said it didn't travel like we did. That it didn't even move. It simply showed up when you were weak. When you stopped watching. When you stopped believing in monsters. Now Reza wasn't sure if those stories were wrong. As he sat back down, The Icarus message looped one more time. They came through us. But this time there was something different. A second voice. Quieter. Almost hidden under the static. Don't look at Saturn. Reza blinked. Replay that. Boost background noise. The message played again. The same warning. But now he heard it clearly. Don't look at Saturn. He slowly turned toward the large observation window. Beyond the station, Saturn hung in space. Beautiful. Calm. Unmoving. And then, for just a second, one of the rings flickered. Not a glitch. A shadow. Something was in the ring system. Watching. Waiting. The Icarus wasn't just warning them about what happened. It was trying to say, it's already here, and it had never left. The thing inside Saturn's rings didn't move. That was the first sign something was wrong. Everything in space moves. Rocks drift. Ice rotates. Light bends. Even shadows change shape. But this thing stayed still. Reza watched it for hours. It hovered like a hole in space. Not dark exactly. More like forgotten. As if his eyes didn't want to see it. As if his brain tried to erase it. Hallie ran scans. Every time, the same result. No object detected. But the station's windows said otherwise. You see it too, don't you? Reza whispered. I see nothing, Commander, Hallie replied. Exactly. That was the problem. At Earth Command, Dr. Anika Rao received the data from Blackwatch Station. She was director of the IDC, the Interplanetary Defense Coalition. Most people believed it was just a research group. Only a few knew it had built the solar system's invisible armor. She stood before a quiet room full of generals, scientists, and AI diplomats. The Icarus message played again. They came through us. And then that strange whisper, don't look at Saturn. She paused the message. This wasn't random. Something happened on Icarus. Something got inside. But what kind of enemy lives in gravity? One general asked. We don't know, Rao replied. But it's here now. The room fell silent. Earth had prepared for fleets, for weapons, for invaders with claws and fangs. But this was different. This enemy wasn't physical. It didn't broadcast threats. It didn't move ships. It moved fear. And it used humans to do it. Back at Blackwatch, the drones reached Icarus. Reza watched the live feed on the screen, heart pounding. The ship was a skeleton. Hull torn. No lights. Drifted sideways like a ghost. The lead drone latched onto the airlock and cut inside. The hallway was frozen. Ice crystals floated in the air. Everything was dead. Except the bridge. There, something pulsed. The captain's chair was still occupied. The body was wrong, thin, stretched, almost melted, but still recognizably human. A hand rested on the console. The lights around it blinked. Not red. Not blue. But white. White, like moonlight on deep water. What's that glow? Reza asked. Hallie answered slowly. Unknown. Not electrical. Not chemical. Possibly gravitational. The drone moved closer. Then the eyes of the body opened. Not blinking. Not alive. Just open. No pupils. Just silver light. The drone froze. His camera glitched. The signal went black. Drone feed lost, Hallie said calmly. Recover the other signals, Reza snapped. Hallie tried. The second drone, then the third, each cut out one by one. No sound. No heat. Just darkness. Then, without warning, all of them came back online at once. But the video wasn't showing Icarus. It was showing Blackwatch Station. Perfect image. From outside. As if something was now watching them. Cut the feed, Reza ordered. Hallie obeyed. The screens went dark. Commander, Hallie said. We are now receiving long-range signals from Earth. Dr. Rao requests a secure link. Reza opened the channel. Rao's face appeared. Her expression was tense. We're evacuating Saturn space, she said without preamble. Reza blinked. You think it's that serious? I think we're already late. She paused, then added, There's something you need to see. Hallie patched through the new data. A A satellite array orbiting Jupiter had recorded something unusual, a sudden gravity pulse that bent the path of nearby asteroids. But the source didn't come from a ship or a planet. It came from empty space. Something had entered the solar system, without using engines, without making a sound. Reza stared at the numbers. That's not FTL. It's not even movement. It's intrusion. Exactly, Rao said. We think it's not entering space. It's entering us. The connection cut out. An alarm sounded. Hallie's voice echoed through the station. Warning, proximity breach. Object detected 700 meters from hull. Reza ran to the window. First he saw nothing. Then a ripple, like heat over asphalt. Space distorted just beyond the station. A shape began to form. Not metal, not flesh, but like a thought given form. A swirl of pressure and memory. A shape made of fear. Hallie flickered. Lights dimmed. The station's artificial gravity groaned. Reza floated a few inches off the floor. It's here, he whispered. The thing outside didn't knock, didn't broadcast. It just was. And then it spoke. Not in sound, not in light, but in memory. Reza saw it all. His childhood, his mother's face, the war he tried to forget, the sound of fire, the weight of guilt, the cold silence after a scream. It showed him pain, and it fed on his reaction. Then it whispered a question, straight into his mind. What would you give to forget? Reza gritted his teeth. He whispered back, nothing, and the thing paused. It didn't understand. That's when Reza realized the truth. This wasn't just an alien. It was a predator, of minds, of memories, of fear. And Earth had just become its hunting ground. Reza's heart pounded. The lights on the station were dim now, flickering like a dying candle. Hallie's voice stuttered, broken and slow, as if it was trying to stay awake. Systems, failing, unknown interference. Outside, the thing hovered like fog caught in gravity. It had no clear shape. One moment it looked like a cloud, the next like a shadow of something with arms but not arms. Not really, just impressions. Like something trying to look human and failing. Reza forced himself to stay calm. He pulled himself toward the emergency panel and shut down the station's power grid completely. Everything went dark. The humming stopped. Even Hallie went silent. Only silence remained. The thing outside didn't move. Maybe it needed signals. Light, thought. Reza floated in the darkness and tried not to think. Not to feel. But it didn't matter. It was already inside. His breath caught as the emergency lights blinked red. On their own. No power. No trigger. Just the thing playing games. He clenched his jaw. You want me to be afraid, he said out loud. You feed on fear. No answer. Just the soft groan of the station's metal walls. But something in Reza's mind felt heavy, like a fog rolling in through his skull. His memories twisted. He saw himself at age 6, holding his father's hand during a launch. The sky had been blue. He remembered it. But now the memory shifted. His father's hand became cold. The sky turned red. The launch tower fell. It wasn't real, but it felt real. The thing was trying to rewrite him. That's when he remembered the old story, Project Eclipse. Anika Rao had hinted at it during a secret briefing years ago. She called it humanity's last trick. A plan so dangerous it had been locked away under Earth's core defenses. Not a weapon of mass destruction, but a mental firewall. If the enemy came for the mind, Earth would fight in the mind. Reza floated back to the console and reached under the panel. His fingers found the hidden switch. A single, red button labeled Manual Override, Eclipse Authorization. He slammed it with his palm. The lights didn't return. The engines didn't hum. Instead, a pulse shot through the station. Quiet, invisible. Across the solar system, hidden satellites received the signal. In tunnels beneath Earth, bunkers stirred. AI cores blinked awake. Their only job to clean. This was the start of Eclipse Protocol. Anika Rao stood in Earth Command, surrounded by flashing screens and screaming technicians. The Blackwatch signal is confirmed, someone said. Eclipse is active. Do it, Rao replied. Phase 1. Around Earth, strange devices powered up. Not weapons, not shields, but something older. Something forgotten. Dream traps. They were built from deep brain scans, psychology maps, and old human folklore. They didn't fire bullets. They fired stories. The idea was simple. If something hunted minds, then bait it. And humans had thousands of years of stories to use. Back at Blackwatch, Reza held still as his station shuddered. From deep within its memory core, audio began to play. Not data, not signals, but voices, whispers. They spoke in dead languages, in nursery rhymes, in military orders from wars that never happened. They spoke of monsters, ghosts, heroes, loss. The thing outside paused. It wasn't attacking now. It was listening. For the first time, Reza felt something shift. Like it was thinking, not in the way people think, but in hunger, in confusion. What's wrong? Reza said softly. Too much for you? The enemy didn't understand stories. It only knew feelings. It knew pain, fear, sadness. But humans turned those into weapons. Eclipse was never about destroying the enemy. It was about feeding it poison. The stories played louder now. The tale of a girl who survived the vacuum of space by sheer will. Of a boy who disarmed a nuclear bomb with nothing but a screwdriver. Of a pilot who crashed his ship into a black hole just to stop a war. The thing twitched. Reza felt its pressure slip from his mind. It was choking. It had eaten too much meaning. Too much humanity. Hallie's voice stuttered back online. Commander, signal strength rising. Enemy presence dropping. The shadow outside shivered, stretched, then recoiled. And then, in an instant, it vanished. Gone. Like it was never there. Reza floated in the quiet. Hallie ran diagnostics. Enemy signature dissipated. No trace detected. Eclipse successful. Reza let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. But he knew this wasn't the end. It had fled, yes, but it had tasted them. And now it knew Earth was alive. He opened a channel to Earth Command. This is Blackwatch, he said. Target is gone. Anika Rao answered instantly. Understood. Phase 2. Reza nodded. We get ready. Because next time, he looked out at the stars. They won't come to study us. They'll come to stop us. Deep beneath the ice of Europa, the lights flickered on. No alarms. No countdowns. Just a low hum, like the station was waking up after a long sleep. Machines groaned, gears spun, and strange blue lights lit up the ancient tunnels. The cradle was awake. For 70 years, the cradle had slept in silence, hidden under kilometers of frozen ocean. It was built before humans had even landed on Mars. A secret project. No windows, no open communication. It didn't need to talk. It only needed to remember. Now it had a visitor. The thing that had fled from Saturn had not truly gone. It had simply changed direction. Europa was cold and quiet. No cities, no armies, no minds filled with resistance. Just silence. The kind of silence it liked. But the cradle was not like Blackwatch Station. It wasn't just a base. It was a weapon, but not one made of steel and fire. It was built from old human memories. Real ones. Painful ones. That's what made it dangerous. As the entity drifted into orbit around Jupiter's moon, it hesitated. Could feel something here. Something wrong. Something familiar. Pressed closer. Below the surface, the cradle systems prepared. Inside its deepest chamber, an old AI came online. It had no face, no voice. It only thought. And it remembered every war, every loss, every scar in human history. The AI didn't fight with missiles or lasers. It fought with emotion, raw and focused. Because it knew what this thing was. It was a feeder, a memory drinker, a mind hunter. And the best way to poison a feeder was to give it something it couldn't handle. The cradle reached into its archive and opened the files labeled Origin Pain. Memories spilled into space. Not data packets or digital noise, just feeling. Huge waves of sorrow, regret, rage, and grief pushed outward like a silent scream. It wasn't fake. It was real. The death of children, the loss of parents, the cries of soldiers who died too young, the betrayal of friends, the loneliness of deep space, all of it poured into the dark. The thing from Saturn, now hovering just above the ice, stopped moving. It had never felt this before. Not just fear, not just sadness, but history, a deep, endless pit of emotion that stretched back thousands of years. Tried to run, but the cradle had locked on. More memories flooded outward, sharper ones, angrier ones. Genocides, extinctions, suicides, wars so brutal that even humans couldn't fully understand what they had done. The entity trembled. The shape flickered. It had fed on weaker minds before, minds full of simple fears, creatures that feared the dark. But humans were different. Humans didn't just fear the dark. They became the dark when they needed to. That was the part it couldn't handle. The cradle didn't let up. It activated phase 2. Emotion became weapon. It broadcast a single memory into the entity's core. The memory of a man who had watched his entire colony die to save a single child. The moment when he chose pain over survival. When he gave up everything, not for reward, but for hope. The entity screamed, not in sound, but in force. The gravity around it twisted. Ice cracked on Europa's surface. The entity tried to escape upward, but the pain followed. The AI in the cradle whispered back, not in words, but in meaning, "You wanted our minds. Now you have them." The thing vanished again, gone in an instant, but this time it left behind a trace. A signal, a pulse, and it wasn't random. The pulse was a warning. It wasn't alone. Back at Earth Command, Dr. Rao watched the signal spread across the solar system like a wave. It bounced from moon to planet to comet. Each time it changed slightly, like a call and response. Other things were waking up. Maybe they had always been here. Maybe they had been watching. And now that Earth had fought back, they were interested. Rao turned to her staff. The cradle held it off. "Is it dead?" someone asked. "No," she said. "It's afraid. And fear means it knows we're dangerous." She paused. "But it also means it might bring others." There was silence in the room. Then a message came through. It was from Commander Reza at Blackwatch. 2 words. "More coming." The room didn't panic, because now they had a plan. If these things wanted minds, Earth would give them something else. A fight they'd never forget. The signal spread faster than anyone expected. From Jupiter's moons to the asteroid belt, strange readings began to spike. Tiny gravity shifts, flickers of heat where there should be none, shadows that didn't match any object. It was like the solar system itself was being watched, not just by one thing but many. Dr. Rao stood in Earth Command, her hands clenched behind her back. On the giant screen in front of her, the data came in faster than her team could process. 17 new anomalies, her technician said, all outside Mars orbit. "Any ships?" she asked. "Nothing solid. No engines. No signals. But something's out there." "They're not ships," Rao muttered. "They're scouts. Listening." She turned to her AI assistant. "Activate phase 3. The AI responded at once. Confirming. Operation Dreamline is now live. Across Mars orbit, hundreds of small satellites blinked on. They were not weapons. They were traps. Each one carried a single job: confuse, distort, mislead. If these entities fed on emotion and memory, then humanity would give them exactly that, but in ways they couldn't handle. The satellites broadcast carefully crafted stories. Tales of false victories, fake wars, made-up species. Entire histories that had never happened. Memories of people who never lived. Despair so deep it felt real. Joy so bright it burned. It was all noise, but it had a purpose. It was bait. The idea was simple: cloud their senses. Make them believe Earth was chaotic, broken, confused. Meanwhile, humanity's real defenses were hiding, waiting. Commander Reza watched from Blackwatch as one of the entities came closer to the edge of Mars orbit. This one looked different. It moved faster, more directly. It didn't drift like the others. It scanned. Reza's screen showed faint readings. No metal, no radiation, but the object bent space. It dragged light, felt like a thought too big to hold. "We've got a live one," he said. Hallie chimed in. "Target is interacting with dreamline pulses. No reaction yet. Possibly more advanced." Reza narrowed his eyes. "Then it's time to test it." He tapped a switch labeled Wraith Protocol. Far below, hidden under the surface of Phobos, Mars's tiny moon, a door opened. From that door, 5 dark ships launched. They didn't look like normal spacecraft. No flashing lights, no sharp edges. They moved like shadows. They didn't fly, they slid through space, barely touching it. These were Wraith-class interceptors. Unmanned, fast, armed with the most precise focus tech Earth had ever built. But their real weapon wasn't speed. It was silence. They didn't use radios. They didn't broadcast. They didn't even leave heat trails. The enemy wouldn't see them coming until it was too late. The lead interceptor, Wraith 1, locked on to the anomaly and fired. No explosion, no laser beam, just a packet of pure memory. Compressed grief from 1,000 war victims. The packet struck the entity dead on. For a second, it stopped moving. Then it twisted. It didn't just turn, it inverted like space was folding the wrong way. A scream filled the command center, but it wasn't sound. It was pressure in the skull. Everyone clutched their heads. The enemy was fighting back. "I want jamming now," Reza yelled. Hallie activated a new layer of defense. Signals across Mars' orbit changed frequencies, layered in ancient Earth languages, tribal chants, forgotten songs, even baby cries, all woven into a web of emotional static. The entity flailed, caught in the noise. Then suddenly it split, breaking apart like a wave crashing on rocks. The pieces floated for a moment, then disappeared. Everyone held their breath. "Target dispersed," Hallie said. "No signature remaining." Reza exhaled slowly, but then another alert sounded. Dr. Rao's voice came through on the emergency channel. "Reza, we have a bigger problem." "What is it?" "Something's moving near Venus. Not a shadow, not a scan, a structure." Reza sat up straight. "What kind of structure?" "Artificial, roughly 800 kilometers long." That made him pause. "That's a station?" "No," Rao said quietly. "It's alive." She sent the image. Reza's screen filled with something massive, coiled around Venus's upper atmosphere like a serpent made of clouds and glass. Pulsed not with heat, but thought. They could feel it thinking. "Has it done anything?" Reza asked. "Not yet," Rao replied. "But it's watching, and it knows we're here." The screen blinked. A message appeared in simple English. "We see your memories. Now see ours." Then a flood of data hit their systems. Images, voices, feelings, all alien. The war had just become mutual. Earth had struck first. And now the enemy was finally ready to respond. Venus burned beneath the thing in the sky. It hovered above the clouds, silent, massive, alive. No metal, no engines, just a body, curved and shifting like glass underwater, pulsing with thought. Humanity had never seen anything like it. But now it was showing them something. Images poured into Earth systems. Strange cities that floated above oceans of light. Shapes with no faces, walking through skies of shifting color. Voices made of vibration, not sound. A world where time flowed in loops, not lines. It was not a message. It was a memory. From them, Dr. Rao stood frozen in Earth Command, watching the images flood the screens. Her team scrambled to translate, to decode, to filter it. But it wasn't data. It was feeling, raw and pure. "They're not attacking," someone said. "Not yet," Rao replied. In space, around Venus, the huge being kept pulsing. Not like a weapon, but like a heartbeat. The clouds around it churned. Lightning flashed beneath. Then a second message came through. This time it spoke with words. Not through sound, but directly into human minds. "You are dangerous. You have learned to feed memory to fire. That is not survival. That is war. Commander Reza heard it inside his head. It was like a whisper from a dream he hadn't had yet. He stood on the observation deck of Blackwatch, hands gripping the railing. "They're afraid," he said. Hallie replied, "Fear is logical. They consume minds. We poison their food." Reza gave a dry smile. "And now they want to teach us a lesson." Across the solar system, Earth's hidden forces began to shift into final formation. Not just wraith ships, not just emotional weapons, but the true fleet, the Atlas Line. It had been built in secret, orbiting between Earth and the Moon, masked by thousands of decoys. Hundreds of ships, silent and patient, bristling with weapons designed to fight an enemy that never came. Until now, Admiral Lien Santos took command. She stood on the bridge of the Terras Valor, the largest human warship ever built. 1 kilometer long, armored with neutron-forged alloy, and powered by a fusion core that could light a small moon. She wasn't afraid. Her ancestors had fought in the collapse of Earth's climate, in the silence of deep space, in the dark of history's worst hours. If these things wanted to test humanity, she would show them what came next. "All ships," she said over the comms. "Final check. We move in 60 seconds. Her voice was calm, firm. Every captain across the fleet nodded. The plan was simple. Distract the entity over Venus. Strike it where it thinks it's safe, inside its own memory. Reza and Hallie launched the probe from Blackwatch, a thin dart of polished black metal. Inside it was a payload of synthetic memory, crafted by the best AI minds Earth had ever produced. Perfect lie. It told the story of a human who became like them, a mind that left its body. A creature of thought that chose not to feed but to protect. It was bait. As the fleet approached Venus, the entity noticed. Spoke again. "You choose extinction. You are not ready." Then the clouds below parted, and light poured out. Not heat, not fire, but memory. The sky above Venus glowed with images, millions of them. They weren't human. They were alien minds. The entity was opening its past. Scenes of its birth, of its first hunger, of its fear. Not a weapon, a warning. Dr. Rao watched from Earth Command. "It's showing us what it is," she whispered. "It's telling us this is who they are. They don't fight with guns. They fight with memory. And we just outsmarted their entire species," someone said. "Maybe," Rao said softly, "or maybe we just woke something worse." In orbit, the Terras Valor locked weapons. Admiral Santos hesitated. Something felt wrong. Too easy. Too open. "Commander Reza?" she said through the encrypted line. "Are you seeing this?" He nodded, eyes narrowed. "They're not attacking because they're learning." "Learning what?" Reza stared into the stars. "Learning how we fight." The memory bomb probe struck the entity over Venus. For 1 second, it seemed to dissolve, spread out like mist in the wind. Then it snapped back. Tighter, sharper, smaller. It had changed. Not vanished. Adapted. Then the third message came. "You have shown us how to become like you. Now let us show you how we become like us." And around the solar system, one by one, the stars began to flicker. Not because they were dying, because something was stepping through. The war wasn't over. It had just started. The stars blinked. One after another, they dimmed, not because they lost light, but because something moved between them and the solar system. Not ships, not fleets, just shapes, thin lines, curves, shadows that seemed to stretch from nowhere. They were too large to measure, too quiet to track. They didn't make sound. They made presence. Admiral Santos stood on the bridge of Terras Valor, staring at the tactical screen. Nothing showed up. No signatures. No warnings. Just a field of silence moving in toward the planets. She turned to her comms officer. "Raise the Atlas line. Tell them to hold position and prep countermeasures." The officer nodded, but the signal wavered. Interference was spreading. Not from energy, but from thought. At Earth Command, Dr. Rao gripped the edge of the table. Her knuckles were white. She had seen many simulations. War games. Projections. But nothing like this. This is not just one species, she whispered. They've called others. The AI beside her blinked. We detect 11 unique cognitive patterns within the signals, it said. Not one mind, many, each older than human civilization. Rao took a breath. Then they're not just visitors. They're a network. The screen showed the solar system from above. Dots moved toward it. Not ships, but memories. Massive. Woven together. The final message came. It echoed in every mind. Every person on Earth. Every ship. Every station. No words, just feelings. We were born in silence. We lived by feeding. But now we learn to evolve. You taught us how to change. You taught us fear. You taught US war. And then nothing. The shadows stopped moving. For a full minute, the system held its breath. Reza floated in Blackwatch, staring at Saturn. The rings were still. The stars calm again. The darkness felt full, like someone standing behind you that you couldn't see. He reached out to Hallie. Status. Hallie paused. Then, all anomalies halted. No further intrusion. No energy spikes. Quiet. Too quiet. Dr. Rao watched the streams. All clear. Admiral Santos ordered her fleet to stand down, but stay alert. Then came something no one expected. A new shape appeared near Neptune. Small, clear, measurable. A sphere of light. Not a threat. A message capsule. It floated gently toward Earth orbit, slowing down without propulsion. No weapon. No virus. Just something left behind. Earth recovered it. Inside, they found one sentence burned into a crystal. You were the first to hurt us. The first to teach us. That makes you ours. Dr. Rao held the crystal in her hand and closed her eyes. They're not enemies, she said at last. They're students. And humanity had just become their teacher. Back on Earth, life slowly returned to normal. The skies were quiet again. No ships fell. No planets burned. But something had changed. The solar system now had visitors in its shadows, watching, listening, not conquering, studying. The Solar Defense Network stayed active. The Atlas Line continued patrols. The Dreamline satellites kept humming their strange stories. But the war didn't restart. Instead, something stranger happened. One day a signal came back. From deep space. Not a warning. A gift. Inside it were new equations. Technologies humans hadn't invented. Maps of stars no telescope had ever seen. Proof that the visitors were not angry. They were grateful. Grateful for the pain. Grateful for the fight. Grateful for the lesson. Earth had done what no other world had. Forced the predators to stop and learn. And so, humanity didn't just survive the war. They ended it. They weren't the strongest. They weren't the oldest. But they were the first to turn fear into strategy, memory into a weapon, and pain into a shield. From that day forward, no species challenged Earth again. Not because of its weapons. Not because of its ships. But because Earth was now understood. Not a target. A teacher. Years later, in a classroom on Luna Base, a child asked their instructor, "Why did the stars blink that day?" The teacher smiled. "Because," she said, "someone out there learned what it means to meet a human, and leave changed." The stars still watched. And so did Earth. Waiting. Preparing. Knowing the silence might return. But also knowing this time, when it did, it would listen first.